How can you beat that?
Oh yeah, I'm wrong.
So, whoa.
How do you explain? Okay, let me give you another example. You don't like water, I see. You don't like water. Let me give you another example. The sun. Flat Earth theorists.
Before we want to move on to water, I want to show you fellows something. Fellow ladies.
Content over everything.
Now, no matter what I do with this water, I can assure you that once it comes to rest, the surface of that water is going to be level, right? Not only is it going to be level, but it's going to be parallel. Do you understand what parallel means? It's going to be parallel with the serpentine. The lake that is over there, which is also provably level from one side to another. So parallel, down to sea level, still parallel. When are you ever going to measure curving water? If you believe
know the
in
difference
curving
between
water, it's
Euclidean
because you
and
spend
non-Euclidean
too much time
geometry.
watching Disney programs, my friend, because people cannot walk underneath a bottle of water. This water would fall out if it didn't have a container.
Do you
We
know the
that.
difference between Euclidean and non-Euclidean geometry?
Well, I've done some research into it, but you don't seem to know the difference between
Euclid
level and curve.
was a Greek guy, an ancient Greek guy. He was a mathematician, and he invented the Euclidean geometry, which is the basis of our nowadays geometry. The problem is it's only applied to a flat plane. So it can't apply exactly to the earth that surrounds us. That's why in the modern times there has been invented non-Euclidean geometry. Geometry that we can apply to around Earth and to the whole universe as a whole. Because if you draw two parallel lines on the surface of Earth, they will inevitably converge because the Earth is round. And that's why we have non-Euclidean geometry. If you want to look up into it, look up into it. But if you think that everything is wrong, everything about the round Earth is wrong, you also think that non-Euclidean geometry is wrong, which is basically what we are following right now in terms of science. It's the geometry that applies to the universe. But let's change subject a little bit because
why are you talking about that then? Which is your preferred map of the Earth, globe map? Because there has to be one accurate version of the globe. Which is your preferred one?
my preferred globe.
Yeah. Because now we can map. Apparently, we can map the human heart. We can actually digitally print the human heart. But there isn't a single, not one, agreed version of the globe in all of science. There's not one agreed flat map, and there's not a one agreed globe. In fact, all globes in America have to be sold with, this is not an educational, it's only a toy, because they're actually not provably exactly like this Earth. So if we'd been out there, if we'd been out into space, we would have a camera sitting on Moon right now filming the Earth. It would be the most watched YouTube thing on Earth. If we could have a camera sitting on Moon, HD, 4K, filming the Earth spinning like this, they cannot do it. They cannot do it. They tell you that in 1960 they were able to phone the Moon, and yet if you go 10 miles out of your town, you got no signal. Why? Not because there's no satellite, but because you're away from the ground towers that provide us with all of our GPS and all of the stuff. So let me tell you, when I found out that NASA were doing all of their imagery through computer-generated means, so they weren't real photographs, I started to question all of the stuff about all the suns I used to believe in, all the planets I used to believe in. Because when you go out and look at the planets with a P900 camera, you'll find they're actually just twinkle stars. They're actually not reflecting. They're not big bodies of rock that are reflecting light back from the sun. That's absolute
Nobody said stars are bodies of rock.
Poppycock. Well, they say they're big gas, but I'm saying that the Pluto, Saturn, Mars, Jupiter, all those stars that you see at night, they are stars.
Pluto is not a star. What are you
they
talking
are
about?
Not rocks.
They're
Don't
not
look
stars,
at them again.
bro.
Don't look at them again. NASA is providing you with CGI, and you just don't want to accept that your gods, NASA, are lying.
They're not
to
my
you.
gods.
Well, you have
Bro,
to
in the
be,
beginning of
because
this
there is
conversation, I told you, I don't accept any knowledge as to be 100% certain, because everything we know and everything we perceive as knowledge, as objective knowledge, is determined by our senses. All the world is perceived by our senses, and our senses are in the end flawed.
Your
That's
senses
why
have been lied to, son. This is the problem, right? I'm a 50-year-old man. Let me tell you this. that your senses, when you're 5 years old, are robbed from you when they put you in a classroom?
You need to
with
choose
with
when to
teachers that you're meant
interfere in the
Let me tell you,
conversation.
let me tell you,
You
this is
can't
important,
keep
because your senses
interrupting
are
the
robbed.
other person.
While you have no senses,
Yes,
we
you
can't
can
really have a
overshout
conversation.
me, but
Now,
what
let
does
me
it
tell-
give to
Let
you?
me tell you, your
Does it
senses,
prove
my
you
friend,
right?
Sounds loudest wins, you know.
Well, let me tell you that your senses are stolen when
Does
you,
it prove
when you
you're
go
right?
to school. When you go to school and they tell you that you're spinning, but you can't feel it, you are having your senses robbed from you. At that moment, you are having your senses robbed from you.
Yes, but your senses are flawed. You can't trust your senses 100%.
I do. I do. I used
Well,
to not
that's very
because,
silly.
because
And I can prove to you that you're wrong in that. Because
you're
look,
going to prove me my own
how
sense.
do we see color? Tell me, how do we see color? Do you know why we see, why is that guy's coat blue?
I'm not going down your rabbit hole.
Why not?
This is a straw man. What I'm interested
Straw
in
man?
here,
It's
what I'm
not a
interested
straw
in
man
here
at
is
all.
telling you that
It's me
NASA
explaining
is
how
feeding
humans
you a
perceive
load
color.
of lies.
Because the colors that we
NASA
see
feeding you
are
a
not
load of
actually
lies.
all the colors that exist. Humans have in their retinas two sets of organs. They have rods, which perceive the world when there's not too much light, and we have cones, which perceive the world when there is light. Cones have there's three different kinds of cones. There's the ones who perceive red light, the ones that perceive blue light, the ones that perceive green light. What's up, bro? Basically, they perceive different lights because the fluctuations. Huh? Fuck
Putin's
you,
an
man.
actor. Putin's an actor, man. Putin's an actor.
Mustafa, don't heckle. Come on, don't heckle, bro. Don't heckle. Let me finish this. Come on, man. I'm saying complicated stuff here. People won't understand this. Come here, motherfucker. Come here. Come here. Come here, man. Come here. Okay, wait a sec.
Let me tell you that NASA is faking space, that your religious leaders are actually from the Vatican.
So don't heckle, don't heckle. Sorry, bro, sorry, I kind of got interrupted.
But people need to know that the entire edifice of banking, of education, and so on, that's been controlled for the last
Come
200
on,
or
don't
300
change
years.
subject.
And so that means, no, this is my platform, and I came here to talk about how we've been lied to about everything, about who we are, what humanity is, and I'm much more interested in that than squabbling about how your eyes work. You know,
But
the
that's
bottom line
important.
is,
That's
the
important
bottom
because
line
you
is
trust
that-
your senses 100%,
if
and you shouldn't.
Well, if you want to talk about how your eyes work, it's because your eyes are balls. It makes it, when you look out onto the horizon, balls, it makes it look like it is a round. But if you try and measure that round, you'll find that there is no measuring the curvature on this earth. There's no measuring. You know,
Okay.
that's the bottom line.
If it's because of our eyes that we see the Earth round, why don't we see straight things like this one here, curved? Why is it not distorted by our eyes?
Well, we could see.
So our senses function in a certain way here and in a different way there.
Okay, you've asked me a question. Let me answer. Okay, so if I was standing, he asked me a question. Why do I see things curved? Well, if I was standing on a train line, looking down into the distance, the telephone poles at the end of the side of the train line would eventually get smaller and smaller and drop into the horizon. They're not curving down; they're just getting shorter. If I had to walk 5 miles, they'd get tall again, and then they'd get further down, they'd get short again. That's perspective, and if you don't understand perspective, you haven't really opened your mind.
Listen, bro, you seem to be the one who doesn't really understand perspective, because perspective converges. Everything in the distance, it converges, into the distance. But as I said about the boat that disappears in the horizon, the boat disappears by the bottom, finishing up by the top.
So on a 10-mile lake, you think that other side of the lake is lower than this side?
Yes.
And so if I'm standing on the top
Slightly.
of the ball, so if I'm standing on the top of the ball, like relativity says I'm standing on the top of the ball, right? Yeah.
In the top of the
ball.
The ball?
Yeah, the ball. Because you said it's going to be dropping down. Yeah?
Okay,
you're
you're describing it in the wrong way. It's not dropping
you said,
down.
Well, what is it?
Because gravity pulls us to the center.
So
and
is
that
the
means
boat
that the gravity...
going down? You said the boat is going down, sir. Is the boat going down?
From your perspective,
Okay.
it seems to be going
It
down.
seems to be, or
but
is it
seeing
going
that the
down?
Earth is round, it's not going down. It's remaining at the same distance from the center. Seeing that it remains from the same distance from the center,
Means
it's
level.
not going up or down.
Means it's level. Means
No,
it's
it's
not going up or
level
down
because
that's level.
Bro,
Not going up or down means
do
level.
you realize that in a sphere, the distance from the center is the same from every single point of the sphere? Do you understand that? You don't understand it.
No, I used to stand under that
I don't know how
theory,
else to
but
explain it to you.
Well, that's why I'm saying we can't really help each other, because for me, that boat is on the same level. It never goes down, because
It is on the same level,
What this man
from
here
the
is
center
trying
of
to
the
avoid
earth.
is what he just admitted to, is that if you believe in the ball, then I'm standing on the top of the ball. This is relativity. Says I'm standing on the top of the ball, and the ship is going to go down
It's
like
not
this,
going
over
down.
the side of the ball. Oh, it's not going down, or it is going down, because if it's going down,
Exactly, it's because
that
of your
means that the guy
perspective that it
standing over
seems to
there
be going
is
down.
actually waiting to come from above. Perspective, exactly. It's perspective that makes it seem, but measurably, you can't measure it. You want to stick with what you think you can see. What I'm telling you,
No,
the
I want to
measurements
stick
there,
with what I can
it's
explain
not
by reasonable
there.
means.
Okay, but
because
what
there's
science,
a much bigger possibility that what I'm saying is true than what you're saying. And again, I follow probability, not certainty. But what you're saying has a very, very low possibility of being true. Now, let me give you another example. Do you know the Coriolis effect? Have you ever heard about it?
Yeah, of course I have.
Okay, you have. That's good. It's about, the cyclones and the hurricanes. The hurricanes in the north, the cyclones in the south pole. Do you know that no hurricanes and no cyclones will come closer than 5 degrees to the equator? Do you know about that? It's a scientific fact. You can, by observing the cyclones and the hurricanes, you can see that they will move, but they will not come to the equator line, and that is because of the Coriolis effect. Because the Earth is spinning around itself. But the top of the Earth, the part on the north hemisphere and in the south hemisphere is doing the same circle, a smaller circle, in the same time that the equator is doing a bigger circle around itself.
Yeah, I know
that
about
means
the
the winds are moving faster in the equator than in the poles. And the relation between those winds creates different fluctuations of air, and that's what creates cyclones when there is a low pressure cell. The air converges and it creates a cyclone in the South Pole and a hurricane in the North Pole. And we have video footage. Of cyclones and hurricanes, and they have never come close to the equator line.
My friends, there's a question here for those who are still listening to me. There's a question here about the Coriolis effect. The Coriolis effect is explained as the thing that causes hurricanes to form in one direction in the southern hemisphere, in another direction in another. And they also claim that it affects the way that a sniper rifle should shoot, that he needs to make an allowance for the Coriolis effect. Well, I can tell you, as a gunner and a training gunner in the
What are you talking
that
about?
we
Who
never
said about
allowed.
shooting?
Well, there's plenty of people who claim, like you, that the Earth is a ball and that they need to make an allowance for the Coriolis effect. Well, I'm here to tell you, my friend, that if there was such a
What are you
thing
talking about?
of Coriolis,
It has nothing to do with shooting.
well, there you go. So there's people here who don't agree with each other. But the fact is that if this were true, and there was a Coriolis effect, what speed are we? You should know what speed we are moving at right now.
The Earth. What speed the Earth is moving?
Yeah, no, you.
I don't remember the exact speed that we are moving in. I don't have my
Okay, I'll tell you why it's
my
important,
notes
my friend.
right now.
I'll tell you why it's important.
But you can look it up. It's
All right.
relatively easy to look up.
Coriolis, if we were moving at 1,000 miles plus an hour at the equator.
I don't remember the number.
And, well,
the
I'm
exact
telling you
number.
because I've had to do the research. You have yet to do it, son. If we are moving at 1,000 miles an hour.
Bro, I just don't
and-
remember
and-
the
and-
exact
and-
number. I don't need to remember the exact number
All
to
right,
prove
but let me,
to you that you're
but
wrong.
yeah, let me make this point.
Okay, go ahead.
If we're moving at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, and say 500 miles an hour at 45 degrees, and 0 miles an hour at the North Pole, then there should be shear forces associated with that difference of 1,000 miles an hour. But there's nothing like that. If there's any sort of turning of the ether that you could say this is causing something in the south and north, that on its own, that the tornadoes or the hurricanes form up in that place is not really enough. It's really not enough to say now we live on a ball and now I'm willing to forgive that I can't measure curvature over water, over flat bodies of water. We cannot measure curvature over flat bodies of water. That's the bottom line.
Okay, so what's your explanation of why cyclones and hurricanes never come close to the equator line? What's your explanation of that? Because in the flat Earth theory, the equator line shouldn't even exist, and yet in the in the real world, we know that hurricanes and cyclones don't come close to it.
Remind me your name. Victor, was it Victor? Your name?
Pavlov, they call me Pavlov.
Pavlov, See, for me, that's like a deeper question beyond water is level. Water isn't level. I believe in gravity. While someone here believes that Muhammad is the final last prophet of God, I'm not going to try and persuade him otherwise. No, but belief in gravity is like belief in Virgin Mary. I'm sorry to tell you that. I'm sorry to tell you.
Why don't you just answer the question?
I have to because I.
How do you explain with your theory how hurricanes and cyclones don't come close to the equator line? How do you explain that? Please do.
I'm not in the business of doing that. I'm here to tell people today.
Well, then
that
don't
NASA
come
is
here
making
and
space.
start telling people to stop
NASA is
believing
making-
in the round Earth.
No, I am
because if
asking
you
to
don't
begin
have
the
an
research process. The
alternative
process is
explanation, don't make people lose belief in things that are likely to be true.
What you mean, like gravity?
Yes.
Gravity is
It's far
a theory,
likelier
man.
to be true than what you're saying.
Hey, because an apple will fall from a tree, you want to believe that rain will fall upside down in Australia, and that ships of a massive magnitude are being cleverly held just in the right place, and that planes, when they fly around this supposed globe of yours,
What is
they're
up
going
and
to
what is down
that
depends
some
on your
imaginary force
perspective.
is going
The
to keep it
down
at exactly.
for people,
Let me finish my
for people
point.
who live
See,
on
now,
Earth,
Pavlov,
the
you're not
down
letting me
is
talk.
always the center. That's the down. The up is outside of the center. It's into the space. That's the up for us in terms of our perspective. You're saying that in Australia it rains upside down. That's not true because the down is always in the middle of the Earth. Now, you still haven't explained how the Coriolis effect functions in your theory. You still haven't explained how cyclones and hurricanes, how come they don't come, they never come close to the equator line.
Well, let me tell you
How
this.
does it
Pavlov,
work?
let me answer all your questions.
Go
Let me
ahead.
answer your questions. That I'm not here to enforce what is the best theory of how this Earth works. I'm just here to tell you that common sense says that we could not possibly live on a spinning ball. And when you realize that the pictures of NASA that NASA have given you from the moon are faked and CGI, when you realize that gravity has a never been proven theory, that things will fall upside down, then you start to realize that you've been lied to about everything. And your cognitive ego really needs an opportunity to look again at everything that you've been taught. Trust your senses. You are not moving. But I'm not here, Pavlov, to kind of go deep with you on how it might work. Because you haven't yet accepted that water is not curving. That we cannot measure scientifically measure curvature. Science says there should be 8 inches of curvature every mile
Okay.
squared.
You're comparing gravity to the Virgin Mary, to the belief in Virgin
It
Mary.
is, because
And yet
it is
you're telling
like
me
that.
the exact same logic that religious people use. You're telling me you don't accept my religion and thus I cannot argue with you. Well, if I accept your religion, there is no argument at
no
all.
religion. The Suez
For
Canal
them
is
to
100 miles
you
long
can't
and
use
proven
that
level.
fallacy, bro. It doesn't help your
All
argument.
bodies of water come to rest parallel with all other bodies of water on Earth. That's a matter of fact. You can deny it all you like. You cannot live on a spinning ball unless you live inside a Disney Pixar movie. That's the bottom line, my friend.
Okay, let me give you
Your
more
religion
examples.
today
Let me give you
is
more examples
scientism,
because I have more
based on
examples.
The idea that gravity is going to hold you to the underside of a spinning ball.
Bro, you
Did
already
you know
okay.
that we are moving
You already
at millions
refused
of
to
miles
answer
an hour
two
through space,
examples,
and yet
two
we have
questions
the
that I
same
made that
constellations
disprove
above
flat
our
Earth theory.
heads for
Let me give you another one.
thousands of
Let me give you another
years.
one.
Is that at all
No, bro,
possible,
come here, come here, come
Do
here.
you think it's really possible
Look
that
at
you
the
could
people.
walk
They're
in the Big
laughing,
Bang,
man.
and yet
They're laughing.
The stars are the same from
Bro,
year
they're
to year?
laughing.
Yes, sir. I don't know. It's not a ball.
He thinks so.
The
He
Earth is
thinks
not a
so.
ball.
Spinning level
You
can't
think
work
you
on
live
a
on a
ball.
spinning ball when you can't scientifically measure it in 2019?
Bro,
Your mind has been
the
doctored
curvature
by
of the Earth has
Disney
been
and
measured by the
drugs
ancient
like
Greeks
fluoride.
more than 2,000
Fine.
years ago.
Let me tell you, there's no science to measure the curvature of Earth today. There is no
measure the
way
shadows.
of, you can't measure
They
it.
did. They did it in ancient Greece.
What did they do? Put sticks in the ground, my darling? That's
Oh, you
right.
will talk to her, but not to me. But not to me.
Well, Aristophanes.
That's some discrimination.
To space and have seen the Earth and it's circular. It's a sphere. People have
No,
gone up to
don't
space.
give him that example because he doesn't believe in the pictures from space. He doesn't believe in those.
Spinning level
Do
can
you
only
know,
work
do you
on
know,
a-
son, do you know anyone who's been up to space personally?
Yes, Neil Armstrong.
Do you know Neil Armstrong?
I don't know Neil Armstrong.
Let me tell you about Neil Armstrong. If you see a documentary, a funny thing happened on the way to the moon. When you see the interview when they first came back from the moon, they look like guilty men, nervous, twitchy. And you know what Neil Armstrong said? says in between moon and space, Earth and moon, you cannot see stars. Do you know what others say? But others say that you can see stars. So these, I'm sorry, your heroes have lied to you. They are puppets. They have lied to you. The moon landings are provably fake. Provably. Go and look at the funny thing happened on the way to the moon, my friend. Watch that documentary and you will see footage of them staging. It turns out that the 1972 footage, a photograph of Earth that was in all of our science books, was the only photo they gave us for 40 years.
It's the moon flat as well.
If we could go on the moon, if we could land on the moon, if we could land on the moon, they would put a camera on there today, a webcam would be streaming 24/7 from the moon because we would love to see our Earth spinning in space. But you don't get any of that.
Flat. Is the moon
all
flat?
You get, all you, I see a light. I don't know what. I don't know.
All planets flat.
That'd be really odd, wouldn't it? I see lights in the sky, and when I look at them with a high-power camera, I see flickering lights. But I've never seen a rock float in space. Let me tell you, go into your garden and throw some rocks up into the space, sir. Try and throw them directly above your head.
Gravity, brother.
Yeah. So, but if they go far enough away, your gravity, they'll escape your gravity, and they'll just float there. That's a belief system, brother. There's an up and there's a down. We live in an electromagnetic universe. This is a torus system, perhaps a double torus system. You are an electromagnetic being. You're an electromagnetic being of light that has been sullied by your owners, by your captors, by those who imprison your mind, imprison your body and your soul with their fake science, with their fake religions, with their fake belief systems. Let me tell you, friends, you are the divine spark of the Creator, the Most High, God, call it what you will. You are that, but your science has made you believe that you are nothing more than the lucky strike that came out of the swamp, that turned into a fish and a monkey and a human out of Africa. That's what you prefer to believe. Did you know that the Big Bang Theory was invented by a Catholic priest? Did you know that? It's the Catholics who've given you the Big Bang. It's the Catholic Church, the Vatican, that has given you Darwinian theory of evolution. They're behind the entire lie. And yet you want to play, you think you're a clever atheist agnostic, but you're batting for the Vatican. You're batting for the controllers. You're the repeaters of their indoctrination. I'm a 50-year-old man. I've lived through this life. I've been to war in my country.
Come take over everything from your humanity.
Come, man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV. Listen.
Well, I do. It has something. It will expand inside the country, but you know the problem is that superpowers, especially powerful countries, they need to assert their power somehow. They need to maintain it somehow. And you know, just like the Roman Empire was doing when it was existing, when it still existed, they would support the wicked barbarian tribe in feuds between themselves. So at the border there would be disarray. There wouldn't be